Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for this webinar. This webinar will be on, we will discover Docentric solution, the perfect solution for Dynamics 365 Finance and Operation reporting challenges. So I will just start with a presentation about InMind, who we are and what we do. So, well, for more than 20 years, InMind has supported companies in their digital transformation with the leading solutions of the Microsoft Dynamics ecosystem, our business intelligence solutions, and our complementary business applications. The vision and initiative of our team of experts has allowed us to offer a wide range of innovative products that transform information into actionable knowledge and maximize your competitiveness, profitability, and productivity. We have created these event extensions so you could get to know some of our partners, experts in their field. They are an extension of our team. The solutions we offer with them have been tested, proven, and prepackaged for better budget control and reduced implementation cost risks. We are happy today to present you our partner, Docentric. During this session, you will see some of the most wanted Dynamics 365 finance and operations reporting improvements in action. The Centric solution can truly empower your business analysts and key users to produce reports faster and better. Now, let me introduce you to Sanja Kolusia, software architect at the Centric.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Marcos, for this nice introduction. Thanks, everybody, for joining this webinar. Thanks to InMind Technologies for inviting us to join and to present our solution to you. I hope that you will find the stuff that I'm going to demo interesting and useful for you, be it that you are currently already D365F&O users or you are planning to go with it. Especially in that case, Docentric might help you a lot and save you a lot of pain. Let me start with my presentation. My name is Anja Kolungia, and I'm software architect at Docentric, which means that I'm a technical person, very much involved in designing and developing our new cool features, but also helping my colleagues in marketing and in sales, and that is the reason why I am with you today. What I plan to show you today, we will start with a very short introduction about Docentric as a company and our flagship product, which we call Docentric AX. But then we will jump into the practical part. We will show the main feature of our product, and that is our add-on for Microsoft Word, which helps you to design your templates, your reports in Microsoft Word so that it can be done by non-technical people, by your internal key users and business analysts, and also functional consultants at InMind Technologies, instead of the job being done by the developers. You will see how this approach makes you much more efficient and closer to your ownership, and that would be the report designs. Then when we have one nice example, we will also see how right now we are more and more emailing our documents, and let's say if it is an invoice or some other important document, there are more and more requirements to also electronically sign those outgoing documents. So we will see how comfortable and very configurable solution Docentric provides for that. And finally, there are many other things where Docentric is improving the standard. So wherever standard document generation and distribution is missing features, we try to jump in and to improve them. And there are so many of these improvements, but I will focus on the situation when you want to email your reports, let's say invoices, what possibilities Docentric offers you additionally to the standard, and also if you want to save also those files somewhere on different storage locations, then what options Docentric offers. So let's start with the first part, and that is about our company. It's been founded in year 2010 when we came to the market with another product, not the one that I'm going to talk about today. It was the Centric toolkit, which is still alive. And the core of that product is that famous add-on for Microsoft Word. So with D365, we decided to do that integration of that tool together with D365 by ourselves so that we offer it as a turnkey solution. We partner, we mainly work through the partner channel, and right now there are close to 100 partners, and one of them is InMind Technologies, and that is the reason why I'm here with you today. Thanks InMind, and thanks Marcus for remembering or for thinking about us and inviting us to join this event. So why would you need a solution like Docentric? If you already have a previous experience with dealing with your reports in D365, they are done through standard Microsoft framework for reporting, which is called SSRS, which is short for SQL Server Reporting. No, SQL Services Reporting Server. It has a lot of problems. It is one generic solution by Microsoft. Wherever you have a database, you are able to design a report and to combine it with the data from the database, but it's not nicely and tightly coupled with D365. It runs on external server. There are many performance issues, but the thing that actually hurts you the most is that you need a developer for that. So all the job is done either by your implementation partner or by your internal developers, and actually developers hate it as a solution. They prefer to do anything else but the reports. So they're frustrated, you are frustrated because the customizations are costly. Even if you want the simplest modification in the layout, nothing to do with the data, you need a developer. Imagine even if you need to make this title a little smaller, you still need a developer. And I have personally never seen a single SSRS design modification requirement that was done in one cycle. It was usually a lot of misunderstanding, a lot of communication, a lot of going back and forth. And that is the reason actually why the customizations are costly. And when you go live and you think that's the end of the story, no, it's just the beginning, because we all know that sooner or later business will come with new requirements and you will need to keep modifying and modifying your designs and go through the same pain always again. And something that we noticed very early on, that standard is missing a lot of features. If you have tried to email your reports, you know what standard SSRS has to offer. When you go to setting of the email pre and destination, you can only configure 2 fields, CC field and subject, and that's it. There's not even email body. That is often the reason that your emails will end up in a spam folder. So there's so much room for improvement, and we will touch that during this presentation. So what is Docentric? It consists of 2 components. One of them is our add-on for Microsoft Word. It's one Windows installer. When you execute it, you get one additional tab in a Microsoft Word ribbon, and that tab contains all the templating tools, the Centric templating tools, all the tools that are necessary to take these colorful documents that appeared on the right side and to transform them into a fully functional template. Your job would be to go and replace these mockup values here with the actual placeholders for the data that is going to come from the report data source in runtime. You would say, instead of this mockup value here, I want the value from the field invoice ID, for example, and due date and total due. You would say that you don't need all these 5 table rows, but just one table row that will be repeated with every new line of the sales invoice in this particular case. And then again, you would show how the fields, these particular values would come from the actual fields from the report data source. if, God forbid, you have to deal with checks, I heard from our US and Canadian partners that they often plan for 2 working weeks, that is 10 working days, for designing one check in SSRS. And with Docentric, it can be a matter of hours. If you're interested, you can find on YouTube channel, on YouTube, the Centric channel, and there will be one section dedicated to designing checks, and you can learn very quickly about that approach. So once we have these designs ready, we obviously need to make sure that they are available to D365. So that's where this second component comes into the game. That is add-on for D365. It comes as a set of 3 models. So installing them, building and running database sync, it takes few minutes on my dev box, a little longer probably on some cloud environments, but it's very smooth process. And obviously that component allows you to configure now that for sales invoice you want to use, for example, this template instead of the standard SSRS design. It needs to be able to listen to the report execution so that we are able to jump in the correct moment and take over the control. As I said, we are constantly listening to what our partners and clients have to say about the missing features. You should know that this component is very dynamic one. We have new releases every few months, and with every new release, there's something new and great for most of our clients. And also, it's perfectly integrated with electronic reporting. So if you have been playing with the idea of using electronic reporting, or if you have already started doing it, then you must have noticed how, okay, electronic reporting models and model mappings are a great thing, but forms are horrible experience. So you can maintain the data sources through electronic reporting models and model mappings, but combine them with our designs. So let's see how it all fits together on one very high-level architecture view. You would first need to use our designer. As I said, add-on for Microsoft Word. Very user-friendly. We will see that immediately after this slide, or 1 or 2 more. We will see that in practice, how the user experience goes. You will see how it is intuitive. It gives a lot of options for testing and fine-tuning, so your productivity is highly boosted. We have phenomenal support. So even if you don't know something, our support will help you. So the learning curve is very fast. And those are all the reasons why this lady is so happy. She will be using it to create the Docentric designs, and they can be stored on different locations. This is a very important message from this slide, that you don't need a technical person, you don't need a developer, and even not a technical person for this job. A typical profile that we see with our clients, it is anyone who knows Microsoft Word and goes through our training. We have good training materials online on YouTube as well, or also we provide the training. So it's 3-hour training to get you started. And yes, now when the designs are ready, what's going to happen from the D365 perspective? It is also important to understand that Docentric doesn't replace standard. And when I say standard, I mean SSRS framework. It simply runs on the top of it. So we wait for the perfect moment when we're going to take over. So we let most of the job be done by SSRS up to the moment when the report data source is ready. So the data was collected from all the related tables and ready to be combined with the design. At that moment, we jump in. Why is that important? Because the user experience is exactly the same with or without Docentric, and that is a good thing. So if this lady has a privilege to open a form, let's say, to post and print, and click a menu item to post and print invoices, she will do that exactly in the same way with or without Docentric. The same dialog will appear if it's supposed to appear. And also all that logic done by Microsoft or by your developers and or by your developers and or by InMind Technologies developers, all of that is happening here. And now when the data source is ready, this second component by Docentric comes into the game, and it will figure out if it needs to take over or you wanted this report to go through standard. Think of about 1,000 reports in the system. You don't want all of them through Docentric. You want only those where you have done something with the designs, or you want to benefit from our improved distribution or improved print destinations. So if we need to jump in, we are going to jump in, take over the data, figure out which of the templates is applicable, combine them into a document. You should know that in case of SSRS, that document generation is happening externally on that SSRS server, and as I said, it is often a source of performance issues. Here, it is happening in the context of D365. If there are technical people on the call, you would appreciate this. And finally, when the document is generated, you send them either to one of those standard print destinations, email, printer, file, or which makes much more sense, to one of the Docentric improved print destinations, but they're still Docentric, archive, mail, screen, printer, and file. So after this introduction about what our company is, what our main product is, and what its purpose is, how it makes your life easier, let's see it in practice. We will see one part of a pre-recorded video, just so that we quickly go through some introduction, and then I'm going to really practically show how working with our designer works. And then later on, we will go to my dev box, where I will show one cycle of modifying one existing template, modifying something and applying it back. It is very important to see that here modifications and new versions are applied through the configuration, not through the code, which is also a big pain with SSRS. Even if you need something urgently in the SSRS design, you need to wait for the new code version to reach your environment, wherever it's supposed to come. While here you try it on UAT, and if everything is fine, just take the same template and apply it within seconds to the production. So let's see what you currently have. Right now, with standard D365, if you want to print invoice, this is how it looks approximately. Through SSRS, you get something like this. And as I was saying, even if you would want to make the modification in the layout, nothing to do with the data, you need a developer. And the developer, and let's say that the requirement was like on this screen, to switch the places of these two blocks of the content. Developer would do it, build, deploy. You would typically wait some time until it is available on some of your environments where you can try it out, and then you will notice that it's not what you wanted. Maybe this logo, when it came to the left side, it's too big, too large. Now you know that you want it to be a little smaller, but you don't know how much smaller. Should it be 20% smaller, 30% smaller? You don't have the idea, so you have to go back and cycle back with the developer in several iterations until you get the result. So if you would like to get something like this as your final output, perfectly possible with SSRS, but you would never go that far. Simply, you would usually settle for something that is good enough. Simply, you wouldn't waste so much time and energy and nerves and everything. And let's see, what is it that you would need to do with Docentric? One possible approach is to start from scratch. Completely take a blank document like this one and split the job into two phases. In first phase, think only about the design, about the layout. You don't need to think about the data. And that is a good thing, because you're not limited by data, and you don't need people who know the data. You need only somebody who knows how your output should look. You can take one of your existing documents and create the same thing in Microsoft Word once again, or import it from PDF into Word and then maybe fine tune it. And then when that phase is done, when you get, I call it mock-up or a blueprint, think of those colorful documents from the beginning of the presentation. When you have it, then it's a moment to start with the second phase of the process, and that is using Docentric to replace those mock-up values by the actual data. So this is one pre-recorded video, but very short, less than 1 minute. Notice this toolbar here, Docentric AX. That is our designer, so what you get by installing our designer. And for this short video, it wasn't used. I used only what standard Microsoft Word has to offer. So what I did, I took some header and footer from some other document. That's what probably you would also do. Then here you would decide what kind of the font you want to use for the title, what color, what position, what size, all of it. Here in the header, probably your key users would sit together with the internal business analyst or functional consultants from InMind, simply to figure out which information, which content you want to present in the header. But how it is going to be presented, with these icons or not, larger, smaller, to the left, to the right, it's completely up to you. While with SSRS, it's up to a developer who needs to go through a million cycles together with you. Now, this table that is currently being shown, generated on the screen, is usually the place where SSRS developers spend the most of their time, because it's usually not just the 4 columns as in this case, but 10 or even more. You want to squeeze as much of information as possible here, and then poor developer has to figure out how to put all that information in it. And I'm going to go faster to the end because there's nothing special happening further, just like some summary information. I want to say about this, imagine everything is said and done, and there are 10 columns here, everything is tight, and you have your production ready design, and then after 10 days, you figure out that you forget one very important information, and it has to be added as 11th column here. Trust me, developer would give up, give his resignation and leave the company, because that is such a frustration, you cannot imagine it. And simply, the job is not going to be done quickly. Developers tend to procrastinate on SSRS designs just because of all the frustration with it. So let's see, actually, now I only have a little bit of problem again with the infrastructure. I need to figure out the way to see the things on my screen, okay, so that I know what's next to be said. Okay, yes, now when we have this invoice mockup ready, we need to start to go into the second phase, where we are going to use what the Centric has to offer. For that, I'm going to use one document that I have previously prepared. Only, excuse me, it's not going to be invoice, but it's going to be purchase order, simply because the data source for the purchase order is a little simpler, so easier for the presentation. But other than that, no big deal, no big difference. Imagine again that this is the result of this phase 1, and now I need to go to the Centric and use what the Centric has to offer to transform this into a fully functional template. Now, before we start, we must somehow bring the information about the data source. And it is done by importing one XML file, which is generated in a very simple way by simply printing. In D365, if I'm working on a purchase order, I would go find any purchase order and print it with one special flag set in the Centric settings for this particular report. And that flag will say, generate also this data source file when report runs. Then I'm going to execute the report once, and I will get also this XML file, but we call it DDSP as short for the Centric data source package. It contains all the information needed about the, let me make this a little larger. It contains the information about the report data source. If there are technical people on the call who are familiar with the data source for the purchase order, you will recognize that it is slightly different, but it is out of the scope of this presentation. If you have any questions, I will be happy to answer them at the end of the session or later via email. Anyway, we made sure to make the data source a little nicer. We can work with exactly the same data source as it comes from D365, but in some situations we decided to make it nicer. In this particular case, it means, what does that nicer mean? Well, we decided to split one structure that carries both the transaction lines and text lines. We decided to split them into 2 structures, that's all. So what would be my process? Here are, we call them tagging elements. Those are the Centric templating tools, and we use them for bringing typically some fields from the report data source to the layout, or to list or repeat, let's say, some content. Usually you would repeat one table whenever there's a new line. Sometimes we need to group the data. Sometimes we need to calculate some aggregation functions like sums and the others. We need to bring the images like logos or maybe item images to conditionally show or hide content. Big important thing in Canada, the same as here in Europe, we need to provide for the multilingual report, so we need to use the labels and we cannot just live with the fixed captions and so on. So let's see what would be the process. Instead of this fixed 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 value, now I want to get the values that will come from my report data source, in this particular case, Perch ID. Often, it is easy. Most of the times it's easy to recognize by the field name what you really need. And even if you don't know, there are workarounds, but it's out of the scope of this presentation. And also your functional consultants will help you. They will initially know much more. And during the process, you will also learn, get to know your data source and become the owner of that data source and of that design. So instead of this, I would use the field tagging element to say now, bring me the content from main data, purchase order header, Perch ID. Here it is. So now I have my first dynamic element, the one that really needs to come from my D365. And they will be added further here. Now, with SSRS, when a developer does something, when he needs to test it, he needs to build, deploy, find the document against which he wants to test, and print it. It can easily take 15 minutes or even more. Here, we have two great preview features, this one and this one. Let me first show you this one. We can preview in different formats, but previewing as PDF is a great choice. It went to another screen. This is a great choice because this renderer that has just been used, come on, where are you? This renderer that has just been used is exactly the same renderer as the one that we integrated in D365, which means this here is a pixel perfect copy of what you can expect when you print from D365. And here, and also another useful thing, you can save this as a file, send to a colleague, or print it, save to a colleague for review. So there are useful things about previewing into a PDF format. Here you can notice that instead of this Perch ID, I got some value for. Where did it come from? Well, when I imported this XML file, it also contained, or in other words, when I generated it by printing from D365, also the exact values on that particular purchase order, which I used for generating that file, those values, we call them sample values, were also included into the DDSP file. And they have them here. You see a header with some values, amounts. Here below are the lines, 7 lines with some dates, and further there you see some other values. So all of that is available to me. And if you search for this field Perch ID here, you will notice the value 4. So that's why we got value 4 during the preview. And this is editor, so I can modify the value. I can say, okay, but you know what? Let me just shift the, okay. In the meantime, we maybe introduced some number sequences. So this is more probably something that we can expect from our system. So let's see what's now going to happen. Again, it went to another screen. But I got this value. And to avoid this PDF going to another screen, this live preview is a real lifesaver. It is constantly rendering my layout based on my sample data and giving me the result. So let's do one more field here. Instead of this, I will bring the purchase order date. Here it is. And now it's a bit tiny. Let me make this a little smaller. I will try to squeeze all of this a bit so that we get a little larger preview. You see, it is rendered in some default format, but I can select this field and pick some other format. I will use the default, some predefined format strings. I will use the short format. And let me do one more thing here on the label now. Instead of this fixed caption, I will now use the label tagging element and say, give me the label that is linked to this field. How do we do that? Again, label, and here I simply need to point again to the same field, perch ID. I could point to any other, but in this case, this is what I want. Now let's focus on the preview. You see, again, when I created that XML file, which I imported, I also had a chance to say in which other languages I want to be able to test my design. Our goal is that you can work here completely offline. You don't need to go back and forth between the design and D365, which is what SSRS developer needs to do. We want to make you completely able to work, to have everything that you need in this designer. So among the other things, we also enable you to say in which other languages you will need to test your design. So now these were the languages that I selected. So if I say now in French, I know I'm talking with Canadian people, I get immediately the translation in the French language. I have just the plain French, but I could have selected Canadian French. It might happen that the translation would be a bit different. And notice also that now also the date here is rendered in the culture of the selected preview language. So it is now day/month/year, while previously when it was US English, it was month/day/something else. And let me see just one more thing I'm going to show with this, with the lines. Instead of all of those tabled rows, I will select one row and say that I want it repeated whenever there's a new line. How do we do that? I said previously, list tagging element is a repeater. So I will put it around the selection. I will say that based on the lines. So whenever there's a new line, I want all of this to be repeated. Okay. Now this is all fixed content. Don't expect miracles. Don't expect that now somehow miraculously all of these fields appear here. Now we need to go and replace each of these dummy values again by the field tagging element bound to the correct field. I'm going to do it only on the example of this description. So instead of this description, I will click it again to field tagging element. And now from the context of the current line, whichever I'm rendering, give me this value name. And now we got really the values coming from this name. Here it is. So you can see under the field name, these blue values here have been repeated here. And I can now play with this, but we don't have time during this quick demo. Usually when we have a full demo for someone who is really interested in the product, then we show a lot of other tricks, but I think this would be enough just for now, just as a teaser, so that you see how the process goes. To summarize, very intuitive tool. You get the results immediately. This boosts your productivity, the possibility to modify, to play with the sample data and to see the results immediately, the possibility to play with different preview languages. As you saw when I was previewing in French, I immediately saw that the layout is ruined with this, so I can immediately take an action and make this a little larger, while with SSRS it would take ages until when you notice the problem and then go back and then get it fixed. You can wait a few weeks to get it fixed. Okay, so now we have our design ready. And let's see what else did I prepare for our presentation. I will now go actually to my dev box, and there I will show you example of just printing one invoice. I have something prepared already. One thing that I left out of the presentation, but now I'm wondering maybe I could have said just one sentence. So yes, important thing when you start working with Docentric, you're not alone, because for about 60, I would say, most commonly used reports. We prepared designs that are Docentric templates that are producing the same results as SSRS. We call them Docentric SSRS replicas. So Docentric templates or designs which are producing or replicating the behavior and the layout of SSRS. So I will go into my D365. I will show one example of printing sales invoice by using our replica, which means something that you can expect out of the box from the day zero. I will modify something simple on that design so that you see that process of modification, and then we will apply one electronic signature to it. So this would be my dev box. And let's restart this one. So when you install Docentric, it appears in the organization administration as last few menu items here. But you will have also workspace, and that is what I currently see here. We brought also the print management links also here, because whoever is working with reports constantly has to jump into different print management menus. And this is the place where you register the reports you want to execute through Docentric. And here, if I go to sales invoice, there are many things we can configure here, but this is something that you can expect to get from Docentric as one of those 50, 60 Docentric replicas. So it is a Word template, and as it comes as part of, as a resource in our model, then it will be stored on AOT. While you have chance also to upload through this form the templates and put them to Azure Blob Storage or to SharePoint. So what I'm going to do, I will take, actually I'm going to print one sales invoice. Here is just invoice journal, so I'm going to reprint it, and I will just use preview because it's going to use that default template that we previously see. Now this can, okay, not so. Doesn't last so long. Now imagine that I need some modification here, like I don't know, I will make something very simple, just modify the color of this title so that we are as fast as possible. What I'm going to do, I will take this template, this Word document, download it. Here it is, open it. Now this is our fully blown replica for sales invoice. I'm sorry, it is not simple because, well, it's not a simple report, actually one of the most complicated ones. And I actually don't want to do anything with Docentric. I want to do just the plain Word things. I want to take this field and to give it some other color, let's say blue, because it goes well with our design, with our logo. And we can even see how it will look. Somewhere here, if I want, I can also modify this logo. I don't have time for that, but usually during the demo, I go and just switch the places of these two, but it is just plain copy paste in Microsoft Word, so nothing special there. So now when I'm happy with the new version of my design, I'm going to save it. And usually we recommend that you don't override our replica, but that you use some other settings. So I'm going to use this one. And instead of whatever I had previously here, I'm going to apply this template. I do it by saying template file attach. I want it to go to Azure Blob Storage. It can go to SharePoint, to Azure, or if you are on-prem, then you can also use some network files, shared folders, or you can point to something that is already on AOT. I only want to take this file and upload it to Azure Blob Storage to this blob container. All of this is configurable. And I will go to my downloads, and the last thing I have there is this one. So successfully uploaded. And now I only need to make it default so that it's used for previewing. There are many configuration possibilities, but right now I want to be as fast as possible and to demonstrate the simplest examples. Okay, so I got now everything based on my new template, and imagine that it was some real modification in the layout, not in the layout, but you needed to bring additional data to display it in different way, and so on and so on. You have all those possibilities in the template, and once you're happy with all of it on some test environment, you simply take this same template and upload it also to some production environment, and in a matter of minutes you have your new version. Now let's see if I want to print this invoice, and I will later send it by email, but let's see, it will be simpler if I just print it to a file so that we can inspect that file, because as I said, I want to apply electronic signature to it. We provide a lot of flexibility there with the electronic signatures. First thing, you need to make Docentric aware of the certificates that you are going to use. And we support the certificates that you have on Key Vault, on Azure Key Vault, and certificates that you have somewhere locally, which you need somewhere locally, and you need only to upload them to the database. So I have already configured some certificates from my Azure Key Vault and one certificate from the database. And because these here have been done some time ago, some connection strings have expired, so I'm not able to demonstrate that, but this one I will be able to demonstrate. So anyway, we first specify which certificates we want to use. Do we want to upload something to the database, or we want to point to something that is on Azure Key Vault? And based on that, we got a list of available certificates per company. Next thing we need to do, optionally, we don't need to do it, but it is optional. If you want also on the printed document to see the visualization of the certificate, then you do it here. We call this electronic signature appearances. And here you see what I'm talking about. So you can have options where you have that appearance only as a text, only as an image, or a combination of the two of them. So this one is, in that case, obviously, I will make this a little bit smaller so that I can fit more of information. So of course, if I need some combination with image, then I need to upload that image. And here I have set that I want appearance as image in the background. You see this here. And then the text in front of it. The text is combination of these fields like signer, reason, location, contact, and so on. And you can even simulate how it will all appear on different page sizes and orientations. Here above, you can really fine tune where that visualization or appearance is going to appear. At the bottom or at the top of the page, aligned left, centrally, or right. And then again, with some offset from that position. So I have something that is just vertically, so bottom middle, and then vertically offset. And this horizontal offset doesn't make too much sense because I want it to be really in the middle. When I save it, then I see then I see the new preview. And they have several different appearances. This one is just the text positioned on the right, and this one is just the image positioned here. So I can play with them and assign them as needed. Now, when I have all of that, what is the next step? I need to go into the report setup. So back to these reports, and here on the sales invoice. And here I have PDF security setup, where here below I can set some password to encrypt the content. So I have also some password, and I think it's ABC. Yes, it is. But this is what I want to focus on. Here, per legal entity, we specify which of those certificates that we previously configured will be applied, and optionally which of the appearances, and those reason and location and contact. We can use something that we call Docentric placeholders. We don't have time for that, for the explanation, but they're a very powerful way of providing dynamic or parameterized content. Now, with this setup, I want to print invoice. Now, when is this signature going to be applied? Whenever the result of printing will be a PDF, okay? So I want to print to some print destination where the result will be PDF. So the easiest thing is to go to print management. And here I have already selected. These are now, I'm jumping a little bit to the last point of the presentation. This is what Standard has to offer when you are dealing with email, nothing special, with file, even worse. And with the Centric, you see there are many things you can do additionally, and with file as well. So right now I want just a simple thing to just create a file with some parameterized name and download it, because then I'm going to get it as PDF and we will be able to inspect that signature. Of course, the same thing would be also if I email it, that email would be would have that PDF as an attachment, and that PDF would be electronically signed. So with this setup in print management, let me go here and now I'm not going to preview, but I will print through print management. So here, use print management. PDF will be generated, electronically signed, and downloaded to my download folder. But I'm not going to open it directly here because it will be opened in browser and I won't see the signature related things. I will open it from downloads folder. Here it is, the last thing that has just been created. You see this timestamp, so let's open it. Did you get me? Once again, okay. First, it's password protected, not directly linked to encryption, but okay, I'm typing ABC. And now it's opened and it's checking now the signatures that was quickly displayed. You see here below, based on that setup, the appearance appeared here. Location came with some placeholder for this particular invoice, current date, and so on. And we can inspect the signatures if we go to signature panel. And here we can see signature details. I have some self-signed certificate that we prepared a long time ago when we implemented this feature, but you'll get the idea of what you can expect from this. If it would be some real signature issued by some authority, everything would be supported here by all the necessary standards. So this would be my PDF where I have applied some electronic signatures, and as you saw, there's a lot of configurability here. And finally, about the advanced document distribution, I could spend ages talking about it, but I would like to leave a few minutes if there are some questions. So only I will go back to this print destination and comment on when it goes for the email print destination, in addition to what Standard has to offer to CC and subject notice subject has to be fixed subject, we give you a chance to use Docentric placeholders wherever in every string field. And placeholders are things that were implemented by Docentric, really placeholders for some content that will be in runtime replaced. So there are some report specific placeholders, like in the case of invoice, it would be, of course, invoice ID, due date, customer account ID, contact name, sales ID, and so on and so on. And there are also some common placeholders that don't depend on the report, like company-related information, current date, time, very useful when storing the files on SharePoint. If you want to do it in some nice hierarchy, I'm so sorry, I don't know to pronounce it, like current month, current year / current month / account number, for example. There are some user-related information, worker-related information, all of them. You just select, and then here below you see what you need to use in the print destination. And now back to print destination. So these are standard tokens. You are familiar with them. We extended them with some other tokens related to delivery address. Here in subject, I'm using a placeholder to bring up the document title. So it will be sometimes invoice, sometimes pro forma, sometimes, I don't know, whatever. Then invoice ID, then due date. Then how would the report be named? Because with standard, you don't have that chance. And then all the reports will be called show invoice on my system, at least, something very dummy. Here, you really have a chance to give it a name. In addition to CC, we also know how to put BCC, then, so why not? This is a thing that the clients are often using because with standard, mails appear to be coming from the user who initiated printing. So John and Mary at your company, it's not so so professional as accounting at your company. As long as this is known to your exchange, so be it some actual email account or some network alias, everything will be fine. Now, this is maybe the first reason why people need to use this, because you have a full HTML body editor with all these what you see is what you get tools, so that you can really create nice configurable email bodies. You can also use templates, but it is now too much details, because in Canada you need probably to be very bilingual for English and French speaking clients to have completely a different combination, so that's supported there. You have a chance to also configure some additional email attachments that would be automatically added when picked from different locations and added to the outgoing email. And with the file print destination, in addition to just merely downloading it, which SSRS is the only thing that it offers, just downloading it and nothing else. With Docentric, you can say, I don't want to download it, but hey, I want to save it to SharePoint, and then very configurable thing here in the folder path, you can use the placeholders to automatically generate some dynamic content. Azure Blob Storage as well. Back to the attachments, and by attachments we mean these document management attachments, so you can save back to that invoice, to sales order, to customer, and so on, so that on a customer you have, for example, all the attachments, all the invoices that have been generated for him. And my favorite, and supported since the previous version of the Centric, saving to Azure files. The beauty of saving to Azure files is that you can map them. You can map Azure files to your network shared folders. So this is something that I have on my Azure. Let me find it quickly here. So this is something that is linked to my developer's account, but here under storage accounts, I have these, and for example, the Centric storage and file shares. I have this one, the Centric report output. You can always click disconnect and select to which drive letter you want to map it. And then here below, you will get a PowerShell script that you have to execute. And then as a result, you have it here in your file system. So you can see here that what I have on Azure, by account, by date, and so on, all these folders I see in my network, in my file system, and I can open it from there. For example, this was something based on some setup by account, and then folders for different accounts, or another setup was by date. So somewhere here, I said, here in the folder path, I was using, you know, like a fixed string by date, and then slash placeholder current year, slash placeholder current month. And as a result, I got something like this when printing. And you can see when I open it from here. So I can be a user who doesn't have an access to D365, but I will still have access to the generated files. So with this, I have finished my presentation. Let me summarize the key benefits that you're getting with the Centric. Obviously, number one, our designer, user-friendly, fast learning curve, great support, quick implementation, any change requests, and also boosts your productivity with the help of those preview features and modifications, playing on the fly with different preview languages and data combination. Yeah, I got it. That's that slide with these common report designs, which we call the Centric replica. So you have fast start and just make few of your modifications, and you can quickly get your results. And all these improvements that we are constantly bringing to everything around the document generation and distribution. So there are 3 more minutes for the questions. Which is a great thing because I could be speaking about this for much longer. So let me see now. Yes, Marcus, can you help me if there are some questions?
Thank you very much, Sanya, for the presentation. It was great. Yes, we do have 2 questions. The first one is, can you create Docentric templates for any system report?
Yes, of course. Of course, thanks for the question. If you remember the slide from that high-level architecture, let me just bring it up, where I said that we run on the top of SSRS. So whatever exists in the system, and those are about 1,000 SSRS reports, whichever is available there, you can create your own design or start with our design if we already have it, and modify it as needed, and then just configure it somewhere here in that remember this setup, the Centric report setup page here and here, and you are ready to go.
And then we have a last question. Can you tell us more about email attachments?
Oh, that's one of my favorite subjects. Thanks for that question. Yes, we have, I quickly just mentioned it, but thought that we don't have, and we actually do not have time for that. But here with the email, you saw at the very end, there are these additional attachment rules. So we can specify on which type of the records, while the report is being executed, to look for additional attachments. And again, we are talking about these document management attachments. So for example, in my setup, this one means while I'm printing invoice, go to the account, which would be customer, and look for the attachments that are marked with a certain category, this one, and that have descriptions starting with sales. This is just such example. I could further filter from all the attachments available on this customer, just filter by these conditions, also by restriction, by document type, by language, if you maintain both English and French version, and so on, and also even how it is going to be named when attached. So in this my example, I just keep the original description from the attachment, how it is called here in the attachment. I don't know if I have some attachment, so this would be original description. Keep it, but just add some suffix so that I know when I print it that it came from there. And this one would mean obviously from the journal. So if I would be printing this particular journal, then this attachment would also, this document that is currently stored here would also end up there. But I have much more possibilities, like from journal lines or from the items on the lines. Soon to come with the next version, also from item variants, if that's the way to pronounce it. From the source table, that would be like order on the sales invoice, or sales order, purchase order, or from the lines on that source. And all of them would be nicely added. With the next revision, we will add also the possibility to zip them and probably to merge them. I'm not quite sure. Yeah, great question. Thanks.
All right, well, thank you everyone for attending this webinar. If you have any questions, as I mentioned, please do not hesitate to contact us at keepinmind@inmindtechnologies.com. And please also follow us on our social media.